What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to episode 34 of the LARNE project here in Football Manager 2019. If it sounds like I'm low on energy, if it sounds like I might be a little bit heartbroken, I mean, look at what's on screen. Look what has happened since you've been here. 2 months have passed. It's been a long time. Today we're back for the Northern Irish Football League Cup final. But yes, the January transfer window saw us say goodbye to a hero, a friend. Unfortunately for us, Regis Mandanda has left the building. Not by my choice by any means. It was a decision made by the higher-ups at the club. They got an offer that they couldn't refuse. That bid, £4.5 million. I mean, in some ways, I can't really blame them for accepting it. At the same time, it's hard not to be a little bit heartbroken by the departure of Regis Mandanda. Unfortunately, he broke his leg at the start of the year, broke his ankle, came back well, started the league season well for us. We had teams interested. We knew it was going to be a thing. And he has made the move over to Benfica. £4.5 million, a decent sum of money. As you can see, we are now in February. We've played a lot of games since you were last here. To be honest, it's been fairly plain sailing in all competitions. You can see our transfer budget, our wage budget, both massive. Another contributing factor to that is the transfer history. You can see here, if we just look at stuff sorted by date in reverse, there's been a few sales made over the course of the January transfer window, a few loaning out as well of younger players. But in terms of sales, Gary Marsh has gone to Glenavon. Not entirely surprising, perhaps, that he makes it a departure, but he's a good player, but he was never going to be a starter for us. Centre-back is definitely one of the areas of the pitch where we really are kind of blessed with talent. Rory Jarvis also went to rivals Glenavon. He's a good player, but was never really going to play regularly as a striker for us. You can see he's gone to them. He's actually got 1 goal in 2 games thus far. I mean, you can see here, he played 6 games for us. He never really hit the ground running last year. This year, just completely out of first-team contention, unfortunately. A little bit of money received for him. Mandanda also left the club. Billy O'Brien, who was one of the first signings we made when we first came, has gone to Charlton for £11,000 to be a backup championship goalkeeper. And then 2 fairly significant sales, really, in terms of the sums paid. Lee King has left the building, a player who has consistently, over the last year and a half, complained about lack of first-team football. And I'd kind of had enough of his crap. I was really struggling to find a spot for him in the team. We've sold him to Aberdeen for £250,000. I think there is a 50% profit sell-on clause in that deal. And Rowan McDonald, who we signed just this year on a free transfer, has made the move to Derby County for £250,000, including a 50% of any future fee sell-on clause. So, yeah, quite a notable sale really there. A decent chunk of money received for all these players, you can see across the whole season, 5.25 million. And, if we just look at our profile here and our history, you can see the total value of players bought is now 3.2 million and then an additional $1 million in agent fees. Our total sales eclipses that. So that's really good. Despite all the money that we do have, we are actually turning a profit. You can see, I mean, it takes you to buy 112 players and just sell on a handful of them for a decent wad of cash. And, you can kind of make good. We did make some signings as well in January. A few of these were players who we already knew were going to be signing. A few of these slightly less expected. But obviously we made a number of signings at the start of the year. But if we just reverse things around here, you can see during January we made 6 signings. The first one, Graham Gebby, a good kind of centre-back with some potential, I think, for the future. Ben Davies joined us from Merthyr. A few of these players I've already talked about, youngsters who we'd agreed fees with. Craig Bannon has come into the side from Hamilton. He looks like he could be a really, really good player. Potentially an alternative to Mandanda at attacking midfielder. Doesn't have the same level of vision and passing, but at 18 years old, loads of room to improve, of course. Another youngster from Hamilton, Kenny Dixon, looks very, very solid. More of a natural winger than an inside forward. We're going to be training him to play inside forward on the right for now. But we'll have to see how he gets on. He may be a player who spurs about tactical changes. Of course, we are playing our 4-2-3-1 with 2 inside forwards. It doesn't quite fit into things as things go. Anyway, the other 2 signings we made, 2 that I didn't talk about last time, they were made on deadline day following the Mandanda sale. 2 players I'd kind of ummed and ahed about getting. The first we've got is Harley Johnson from Birmingham. His contract was up at the end of the year. We initially agreed a contract with him, and then we extended an option just to buy him now from Birmingham. He looks like he could be a pretty good centre mid. You can see capped at Welsh under 21s level, so Hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Lots of potential in him. A pretty good, more kind of regular midfielder in terms of we have a lot of really talented centre attacking mid, kind of playmaker attacking midfielders. But in terms of players who might be able to play centre mid longer term, we don't really have many of those. I hope that Johnson here can be one of those players. And while Keith Frame, I think, is another similar player, signed, as you can see, from Crusaders. 49,000 paid. You can see he's played a number of games for them over the last few years. A player who I have had a close eye on. And well, with the sale of Mandanda, I went and made the move for him. You can see 16 vision, 11 passing, good playmaking potential. His flair, not exactly the greatest, but a player with some real potential who regularly plays at under 21's level. And things are looking pretty good here despite those sales. One thing I will say immediately is that over the course of this year, my squad has kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, you can see this is the biggest the squad's been at any point. How many players do we have? We have 36 players in the first team, which is far too many. An ongoing problem this year has essentially been that our under-20s is stacked with talent. Now, don't get confused here, because a few of these players are players who are in the first team who are made available for the under-20s. So whilst our first team is massive, a lot of these players don't actually play that often here. But when they were in the under-20s, they were complaining about the lack of first-team football. So in a kind of attempt to fix that over the Christmas period and over January, while we had a lot of games, I set up 3 kind of preset starting 11s. So if I just show you these, they've kind of been ruined a bit by some of the sales we've made, like Mandanda here. But essentially, I made a starting 11, a rotated 11 number 1, and then a rotated 11 number 3. And depending on what competitions we've been playing in, we've kind of played one of these various permutations. As I said, we've made a few sales in January that have ruined these squads that I had all set up beautifully. And of course, a few new additions to the squad which don't feature in these. And it's quite a long task to get this all set up exactly how I want it. So we're kind of just going with things as they are for now. But it's been kind of a bit of an issue. I feel like this summer, I need to have a real look through the first team and decide who is worth keeping, who might need to be sold on if they want to leave. I've kind of, as you saw, started that a little bit with the sales of Lee King and Rowan McDonald, players who were good, but were complaining about lack of first team. I couldn't really find a spot in the first team for them. And, I just ultimately had to sell them because they were just kicking up too much of a fuss. That's been kind of, besides the lack of first-team footballer, a concern over players wanting to force moves. Obviously, Mandanda's bid was just accepted by the board from Benfica. But beyond him, you can see a lot of players here who had offers and are unhappy that they weren't sold. You can see Glenn Dining was disappointed not to join Aberdeen. Ian Robson, who's one of our backup goalkeepers, disappointed not to join Wigan. Kieran Kane, our starting left-back, disappointed not to join Leicester. Janelle Bennett, disappointed not to join Exeter in League One. If that doesn't give you an idea of kind of our current club reputation, the fact that our players kicking up a fuss about not being able to go to a League One side, I don't know what will. You can see some other players here. O'Donnell, Aberdeen, Paul O'Connor, Celtic, Sam Robinson, also Wigan. So yeah, it's been a bit of an ongoing battle, this. And you can see players wanting a chance in the first team. There's a number of them. And I feel like for a lot of these players, I've been giving them the first team football that they've been asking for, or at least as much first team football as I could. But it kind of just hasn't been enough for them. Anyway, since you were last here, of course, it was the Fenerbahce game. You can see, as I mentioned, we've played a lot of games. It's been 2 months. Now, realistically, I can't go through all of these games. So as a bit of a summary, we have conceded 3 goals across all our competitive games since you were last here, which is 13 matches. What I'm finding is, with our 4-2-3-1, you can see we don't win games by massive margins. But what we are doing is we are staying so firm defensively. Teams don't score, and it's very difficult for them to win if they can't score against you. And we're kind of just using that as a philosophy to live by, and it's working pretty well for us. In terms of highlights, in terms of real, standout performances, I think the win against Cliftonville was a pretty good one. 2-1 there. You can see O'Connor and Kendra Simmons with the goals. Both these players still at the club, of course. I feel like with Mandanda leaving, O'Connor, Kane and Simmons to an extent become our golden boys, particularly O'Connor and Kane. I'd like to see O'Connor break into the national team for Northern Ireland before too long, because I think he definitely deserves it. He's one of the country's best young players. I mentioned Simmons. He's obviously been always a very, very good player for us, but he hasn't been improving that much over the last 2 years. I did have some offers for him in January. They weren't particularly great offers. You can see his average rating actually in the league really hasn't been that great, although there have been a fair few appearances on off the bench. But I am getting to a point now where you kind of look at a player like Bannon in the team, who's the 18-year-old Scot who we've recently signed. I mean, maybe he has to come in and be the regular striker. I feel like Simmons, for a long time, was seen as our untouchable golden boy. And whilst you can see, just at least in the eyes of Emil Heskey, he is one of our best players. When you've got the likes of Paul Glatzel knocking on the door for a first-team opportunity, I mean, 7 goals in 11 in the league for him. Granted, we've played him more frequently against the weak opposition in the league, but then you also look slightly further down to players like Justin Wright and Pesteridge, both players who have been injured this year, which has kind of impacted their ability to come in. You can see Justin Wright was out, well, for 2 months with shin splints, which was not ideal. And if we look at Pesteridge as well, a player who, again, could probably be a long-term striking option for us, of course. Both these two players we talked about, Wright and Pesteridge, were signed from Crewe at the same time. They're part of the same generation. They have an understanding. I do wonder if maybe Pesteridge could even play as that playmaker in behind. You kind of look at his attributes as a playmaker. Maybe there's some potential there. He is either-footed as well. And well, when you look at Pesteridge, he's not performed great for us. But there's just something about him that I quite like. You can see he was out with a twisted knee. Not the most major of injuries, but just a player who is just off the first team, I feel, at this moment in time. Of course, with me having 3 starting 11s, there's been plenty of rotation to be done. You can see here, if we just select minimum ability 3-star, centre attacking mid is just an area we're blessed in, as is a lot of the striking department. And if we lower the minimum ability to 2 stars, I mean, you can see here, this is the selection headache I've got right now. Goalkeepers, I feel like we've got Jared Thompson. We've also got Cockbill. I feel like these two guys, they are 2 good options to have. I feel like Cockbill, you can see capped now at under 21 level at the age of 16, which is very exciting. He looks like a good player for us. Obviously, Thompson has just improved a lot this year, to be honest. He's cut out a lot of the silly little mistakes. I feel like average ratings are also always a little bit harsh to judge players on. Ultimately, 18 clean sheets in 27 league appearances. He's got to be doing something right. When it comes to centre-backs, one of the big players to break out this year has been Jamie McCoyd in the league. I feel like this stretch of games recently has really been a good chance for players to come out the woodwork and force themselves into my first-team plans. And this guy, McCoyd, is definitely one of those. Now, he kind of goes against one of the things I always look for in centre-backs, which is good aerial ability and consistency. But he's just so blooming talented. You can see regularly capped under 21 level. And when it comes to the national team, you can see here, in terms of the main team, we don't have any players here just yet. However, rather excitingly, go down 1 level to the under-21s, you can see there are a lot of LARNE players here. 11 players are LARNE players, and you can actually see within the starting 11, 6 of Northern Ireland's kind of youngsters are in our first team. And then in terms of priority players on the bench, a number of our players there, including Robert Downey, hometown hero, you know, born and bred in LARNE, 17 years old, continuing to improve. Very excited by him. And actually, when you look at it, it is a lot of defenders here. Adrian Crawford, if I'm not mistaken, he had a bit of an injury problem. He did. He pulled his hamstring last year at a point where I think he was just starting to get into the team. We were kind of playing him in the younger levels. He's kind of fallen off a little bit, but in the last couple of months, I've kind of realised that he's really a player to stick with. With all these young defenders breaking through, it has unfortunately seen Shane McLeaney just fall down the pecking order quite a lot, to the point where he just really isn't playing for us, which it's a shame. But I feel like with the talent that we've got, given the fact that, as you've seen by the league, we are very comfortable in it, there's players like Crawford here who are better defensively, have better mentals, are slightly quicker, who I just need to give the game time to ensure they improve. He's only 17. Obviously, you can see here just some of the talent we have. O'Donnell and Glendining as well. Obviously, Cockbill is in there as an option. Jim Meister, Andrew Morrison, another centre-back who we have. Unfortunately, a lot of these players are consistent, and that's something that's unlikely to ever really improve, but it's just impossible not to get a little bit excited about it. You've obviously seen the 3 teams that I've been rotating between. What I found during this period is that I'm over-blessed with young talent. I need to, this summer, really establish who are the players who realistically have a chance in the first team. You look at a player like Fouad Sull, great player in his day. The reality is now he is the 5th best centre mid or defensive mid at the club. He's probably even further down when it comes to centre mids, to be honest. And as much as it sucks, I just don't quite know where he fits into the team longer term. We've got so many kind of great talents. I mean, you can just see how big our team is here. I mean, you see the first team here, you think it's kind of big. you then realise that the under-20s, I mean, when you discount all the players available for reserves, there's still a lot of talent here and a lot of players out on loan who maybe even have the potential to break longer term into the first team. I don't necessarily need to shrink the team down, but I think what would be good is to identify and establish which players are the real hot talents in this team, which are the ones who are going to really contribute to us next year regularly. And off the back of that, maybe look to offload some of the players who are just a little bit too far down the pecking order, see if we can get any cash for them, just to reinvest into youngsters, reinvest into the training facilities. Of course, that Mandanda sale of 4.5 million, huge. You can see our overall balance sits at £10 million. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this, but I've recently had the data analyst facilities upgraded again. £2.7 million is being spent on that. The data analyst facilities, we have continually improved during our time here. I feel like with that kind of money being spent on them, they must be getting pretty close to state of the art. I don't know if there's a way that we can see that. I don't want to go on holiday. I was thinking if I clicked on my kit, it would take me to the club profile page. It doesn't. I need to click here. But yeah, when you look at it, you can see our data analyst facilities are good. Our training facilities are good. They're going to be improved. I mean, you can see here if we just look at things. Our youth facilities got cancelled because we were running out of money. You might remember a couple of years ago. Youth facilities still continually being improved. Training facilities also being improved. Both of these going to be done next season rather, not next calendar year, but towards the end of the calendar year. You can see youth facilities going to be done in October, training facilities a little sooner in October, which is exciting, and obviously the data analyst facilities also being improved. The stadium expansion still going on, going to be done in just over a week's time, so that's a little bit exciting. I can't remember the exact details of that, but if we go to facilities, I think we can take a look. You can see here we're going to move back in to a 3,075 seater stadium, which is great. That is an expansion of our current stadium. Because of how things are looking, I mean, you can see here in the league, we're consistently getting a pretty decent reception, but particularly in Europe. Fenerbahce, we had 8,000 fans. Against Sporting, we had 10,000. It might be a case of that we need to move into a new stadium before too long just to maintain revenue streams. Obviously, I want to regularly be playing in Europe. I'm hoping that attendances domestically will improve, although I feel like Europe is really where we'll see the biggest spikes there. And so it would be really, really good to try and get either a new stadium or improve the stadium even more, which I don't know if we necessarily have enough money to justify right now, but obviously with us being owned by a sugar daddy, it's an option that I think we can certainly look at. But yeah, all in all, just things at the club looking very solid. Obviously, I've not gone through these games in great detail, but I'm conscious of the fact I've already talked for 17 minutes just about some of my rationale, kind of what's been going on. I do feel like this season, just with us focusing so much on Europe, I've got a little bit tunnel visioned. I've not been thinking about the squad and the long-term plan here. Obviously, you can see here some familiar names like Phoenix Patterson, a player who's kind of just fallen out of favour this year. Players like Lille has really kind of made a name for himself at inside forward. Unfortunately, he's actually been out of an injury as of late. We have had a few injuries. I don't know if we've had an unusually high amount. If we look at injury history here and just sort by date, you can see that, well, if we look through December, really since you were last here, there's been a decent chunk of injuries, not necessarily the world's worst injuries, but just consistently kind of impacting our players. And a few slightly more important players like Lille, Mandanda got an injury. You can see Lille has actually been injured twice in this time. A few players getting the flu and viruses, always good stuff. But yeah, not really ideal. In fact, you can see right now we have the most injuries in the league, although that perhaps can be attributed down to the fact that we do have the biggest squad by quite a comfortable margin. You can see this season we had 17, that would be a lot of injuries. 7 injuries in January. This season, after half the month, we're doing okay with only 2, but things can change quickly, of course. In terms of what all these wins mean, when we look at the league table here, we are just running away with it. It's been pretty incredible, to be honest. 16 goals conceded in 31 games. We've lost 1 game all year. It was against Glenavon. Of course, it was back when we were trying to qualify for Europe with our mental fixture congestion to start the season. 63 goals scored, 4 isn't the largest amount. There is, I think, 7 games left of the season. I think it's 38 games in the season. The title is realistically wrapped up at this point. We already have European football, Champions League football not far away either. It's going to be interesting to see what the board give us in terms of funds for next year, and also if our club reputation can improve. I feel like I've kind of hit a wall when it comes to the players I can sign, I have got a few deals already agreed. You can see Graham Kelly's leaving at the end of his contract, so is Matt Roberts. I've just remembered something. I want to talk about two things really quick, because I should have talked about this and I forgot a while ago. Ben Tilney left the club this year. I feel like I'm doing him a disservice by not mentioning the fact he left, so I want to do it here. Obviously, what a servant he has been to the side. But yeah, we got an offer of £8,000. With the players we've got coming through, it was a bit of a no-brainer to let him go, let him get regular first-team football. He wanted the move, so we've let him go. And in terms of staff, if we just look at all our staff, two players who, well, they were players. They've now moved on to slightly different roles. You can see here, Tommy Stewart is now a coach at the club, decided to retire from football. So we've offered him the job as coach halfway through the season. He was kind of thinking about hanging up his boots. And another player who was thinking about hanging up his boots was Jeff Hughes, who we've now got as a scout with 2 judging player ability, 2 judging player potential. Really, I just wanted to give him a paycheck and make sure he landed on his feet after retiring from football at the end of the year. But obviously, it's nice to keep those players within the LARNE footballing family, even if they're not necessarily the best members of staff. So that's what I was going to talk about there. What I was about to talk about, I appreciate I've already rambled enough. We will get into the cup final that we have today very soon. We have £7 million to spend. We have £17,000 wage budget left over. I think next season we've already been told that our wage budget is going to be £100,000. They're going to double what we currently pay on wages. You can see here next season's budget £100,000 for wages. Our committed spend is £51,000. I've hit a wall in terms of the players I can sign who are 18 years old. An issue I'm having is that for the players who are really going to add quality to what we've already got, teams just want a ridiculous amount of money. You know, there's teams in the Championship who go, yeah, we want 30 million for our best youngster. So I'm continually kind of trying to hunt out the best young talent and sign them. But unless we make some kind of player rule about me being able to sign players from from outside of our current restrictions, I think it's going to be a problem. A few people threw around different suggestions. One was that every year I can sign a player over the age of 30 on a free transfer. I like that as an option, maybe to bring in some experience, but again, I don't know if that would necessarily mean that we can sign improvements to what we already have. I am still kind of thinking, well, I'm wondering two things, so I'll propose both. One is that we can sign a player from outside of our current transfer restrictions who's under 18, just one a season. Maybe they can't be from Brazil or Argentina, so I'm not just going to go and hunt out some really OP regen from there. It might have to be slightly further afield, more obscure. Maybe we look through Africa for a good youngster. Obviously, with me only signing one a year, it's going to be a bit of a high-risk move. You know, whoever I sign, I've got to scout them out thoroughly and make sure they are the one, I guess. The other option, which I'm toying around with, is just raising the overall age of players within the UK that we sign to 21. Obviously, that would mean that they don't become homegrown necessarily if we sign them at the age of 21, but it might just ease us out of the scenario we're in now where I have £7 million in the bank and enough wage budget to bring in any player I want, but I really can't sign anyone who's going to offer me something drastically kind of improvement-wise into the first team. So yeah, let me know what you think. I asked this a couple of episodes ago. I got some interesting suggestions for stuff. I feel like maybe just upping the age limit to 21 is the best thing to do. We kind of keep that home nations feel going on. At the same time, kind of having a wild card youngster could be kind of interesting. The only other thing I saw suggested by someone that I really liked as a potential idea was that we're allowed to have 3 non-British players in the team at any one time. So it's kind of like a designated player rule like in MLS where you're only allowed 3 players on, you know, super crazy wages. Maybe we do something where we're allowed to have 3 players in the club as a whole who don't confine to our current transfer restrictions. They can be bought in at any age, but obviously within our budgets. Let me know what you think anyway. If you've watched until this point and you've heard that question be asked, I value your opinion more than most because, well, if you've got to this point, it means that you are invested in the series enough to watch me do the rambly bits as well as just what you'd normally see. Anyway, we need to do some some kind of shifting around of players here. I realised that when I was showing you guys my different presets, I inadvertently got rid of the starting 11, which I was kind of happy to start this game with. This has been kind of what I roughly consider my strongest 11, although I'm kind of feeling like Fuad Sil might be phased out the team sooner rather than later. One player who I've not talked enough about, and I need to talk about him, is Simon Carlisle. He's 16 years old, 20 determination, 17 teamwork, 15 work rate, I really like the look of this guy as a player for the future. We signed him. I was quite keen to get him last year. You might remember from Crusaders. He looks like he could be the real deal. I mean, if we just do a quick comparison of him with Sul, just so you can kind of see the difference. The graph perhaps can be a little bit... what's the word I'm looking for? Inaccurate. I feel like pace and mentals are something I really value in players. If you look at the direct comparison here, you can kind of see how these two players match up. There's a real argument to suggest that Simon Carlisle is already better than Sul, especially when it comes to the physicals. But at least for now, I'm going to stick with Fuad. But Fuad, McLeany, they're two players who I am a little bit worried their time might be numbered here at the club in terms of they're getting surpassed by the young talent that we've brought into the club, and it's difficult to figure out where they might fit into the team longer term. In terms of left attacking mids, normally I'd play Lille in this kind of situation if O'Connor was carrying a bit of a knock, but he's not available either. On top of that, where is the man I'm thinking about? Where is Wright? Justin Wright is also coming back from injury, so 3 first team left wingers are all out, so our options are kind of limited. So we'll bring in Janeel Bennett and play him, I think, at left inside forward. We're then going to play Bannon at advanced playmaker, and then that opens up the opportunity for a newer signing, whose name I can't remember, the Scottish right winger we got not that long ago. It's Kenny Dixon is the player I'm thinking of. Kenny Dixon here, very, very exciting player. You can see very good as a winger. As an inside forward, not quite as good, but room to improve, and I'm hoping that he's going to do that. He's only 18 and he recently turned 18 as well, so he's going to play alongside his Scottish compatriot Bannon. Both those players linked up previously at Hamilton, so perhaps a little bit of synergy to have there. Despite me talking about the fact that Keandra Simmons isn't as good as he once was, I think we're going to start him. Steve Pestridge, though, an option certainly who we have on the bench. If we just do want to do a quick comparison here, you can see how these two players match up. Again, it's a situation where Simmons... kind of polygon looks better, but actually when you look at the direct attribute comparisons, there isn't a massive difference, I don't feel like, between these players. I think Simmons is the better player, but Stephen Pestridge, there's something about him. There's something about him. I think it's the fact he's either-footed and he's consistent, and we don't have many consistent performers in our team, so that's something that I kind of like about him and gravitate towards him for. But... Soberwell is also actually unavailable. I missed that. We'll put McLeany on the bench for a bit of experience. Other than that, though, we're pretty stacked on the bench. Tommy O'Donnell, an option. Glenn Dining, a player we had a £900,000 bid for on deadline day, I think from Hearts. I rejected it because I had the option to. I was of two minds of whether or not to accept it, but I felt like with Mandanda going, I couldn't really afford to sell another player who's performed reasonably well for us, especially as an attacking midfielder. So he keeps his spot in the team. He's going to be on the bench. Obviously, we've got Phoenix Patterson as well. Kind of fallen a little bit out of favour, but he can maybe do a job for us. The rest of the team, though, it's standard. Thompson, Kane... He's kind of fallen out of the national team, which is not entirely surprising. He actually came into the national team for Jamal Lewis, who's a very, very talented left-back who plays for Norwich in real life, who is kind of just going to be the starter, I fear, for the Northern Ireland national team for the foreseeable future. I don't quite see how Kieran Kane is going to get that many caps, but obviously he got that opportunity when there was a few injuries. Neco Williams at right back, good player. Not been as good this year as he was last year. It's a little bit unusual because we have so much talent across our side in terms of youngsters. There's probably an argument actually that I should play Sam Robinson instead. Sam has kind of come into favour. I hate to say that to Neco Williams because he was so good last year, but when you compare the two players, I mean, you can see the difference between them. Sam is just a better player with a little bit more potential, I feel like. So actually, we'll play him at fullback. But Jim Meister and Sul will play. Janelle Bennett, Bannon, Dixon I'm happy with, and Keandra Simmons will have there. I always feared that with our massive, massive team, there's going to be players who I'm forgetting who should be playing a little bit more. But this is the team we're going to go with. It is a little bit of a nightmare. I feel like I've let it build up our first team to a bit of a silly level. Now, as I mentioned, we kind of need to just have a big clear out, I feel like, and really establish who are first team players, who are not, players who are unhappy about not being first team, get rid of them. But another factor I've got to consider is some of the players who I signed, 2 or 3 years ago now, they are going to be homegrown this summer, which was obviously something that caused us massive, massive problems in Europe when it came to our squad registration. I'm hoping that we're kind of over that now, and that with us getting a few players homegrown this summer, we're not going to have a repeat of that problem where kind of half of our first team is not registered And if we have a few injuries, we're missing players on the bench. Obviously, injuries didn't affect us too hard earlier on in the year. So in the Europa League, we never had a situation where we were lacking players on the bench. But it was a bit of a risk, and I want to avoid it. And that does kind of add an extra dimension, I guess, when it comes to who I keep and who I perhaps let go or demote down a team. Anyway, I've not talked about the significance of this game. This is Glentoran we're playing. Now, we beat them not that long ago. They have just scored a set piece. I'm fully aware of that. But if we just look, I mean, I've not really bigged this up because we go into it and there's just been so much other stuff I wanted to talk about. This is the Northern Irish Football League Cup final against Glentoran that we're playing. We beat them 3-0 not that long ago. Mandanda did help us in that win before he buggered off to Portugal. But realistically, we should not be going a goal down in this game. I've just talked not that long ago about, oh, we've only conceded 3 goals in our last 13 league games. We're the best. As you've seen here, we're not impenetrable. 4 minutes gone. I mean, it's a lovely free kick by Kerr. Now the pressure's on us. Now we really get tested, perhaps. Maybe this is the battle that we need to show us that we're not completely unbeatable. I feel like complacency has crept in, but we have a chance here. Simmons, good opportunity for him. Just couldn't quite get there in the end. His header narrowly over the crossbar, unfortunately for us. Another set piece here, though. Bannon whips it in back post. Morrison's there. What a save that is. That was really, really good. Unfortunately, we just couldn't quite find the back of the net. The keeper with a tremendous stop. Another set piece here. We're having a number of these. And, well, Bannon, welcome to the club, my friend. On his live com debut, potentially the Mandanda successor. Maybe. That's the whispering in the wind around LARNE that he could be the man to be the successor. Not quite as creative. His free kicks, though, pretty close to the real deal when it comes to Mandanda's free kicks. They've got a chance here, though. Jim Meister, lovely in the air. Bannon, show us what you're made of, son. You might have noticed when it came to going through the squad, we have players with crazy squad numbers because of how big our first team is. I think there's a few players with like number 97. I don't know if that's their preferred number or if the auto-numbering just decided to have some fun. But yeah, it's a bit weird seeing Bannon with the number 30 shirt scoring there. Anyway, they've got a chance here. Is that the David McDade? That's not our old McDade, is it? What happened to McDade? I'm now wondering if he... I can't remember. That can't be him. What a stop, Thompson. Can he get the other? He can't. What did I do with McDade? I want to check. Is that weird? That was pre-Christmas was the last time I thought about him. What happened? You've gone to Dollingstown after I released you. You play in the 3rd tier. Wow, he really... Did he get worse? Or am I misremembering how good he was? He hasn't had any long, massive injuries. I don't know. I'm sorry, David. Underwhelmed is the best way to describe him. I had fonder memories of him. I felt like he'd be good enough to go to another top-flight team. But as you saw by his attributes there, not quite the case. Nice save by Thompson. O'Donnell, a little bit mercifully, mercilessly, rather. Not with a lot of mercy, just hammers it home. The keeper had no chance, and they retain their lead in this game, Glentoran. Well, they regain it, rather. They've got another set piece. Surely Kerr's not going to score again. That was a little close for comfort, if I might say so myself. They're playing pretty well here, Glentoran. And we're, on the other side of things, not playing so well. Half-time, 2-1. I'm going to get a little bit shouty. Show me something else, boys, in the second half. Show me the money. I don't know what that doesn't really make sense in this context, but show me something. You've got to prove to Mandanda that we weren't a one-man team, even if he did miss the entire European qualifying campaign and group stage through injury. That's another thing, actually, with the Mandanda sale. You've got to consider where we finished in the Europa League was mostly without him. With the exception of the last game against Fenerbahce, he wasn't available. So, is it that big or a loss for 4.7 million? Who knows? We have players in centre attacking mid. I feel like of all the positions we have, it's the one we're most talented in. And while Bannon, I thought he was going to score. Janelle Bennett, lovely finish by him. Bannon actually given the assist. A goal and an assist to his name. What a finish that is. A tidy finish at that. Not the craziest, not some mental long shot, but just hit with controlled aggression. I feel like would be the way to describe that. You can see Bannon, shot blocked. Bennett, nice touch out of his feet, and then right into the bottom corner. Keeper had absolutely no chance there. 57 minutes gone. Dixon at right mid hasn't had the best performance. I feel like we'll bring in... Who do I want to bring in here? We're bringing Phoenix Patterson out on the right, and then I'm going to bring in Pesteridge, who I've been bigging up. I've said I've got a soft spot for him. Perhaps I'm letting it show a little bit by bringing him in for Keandra Simmons. But you've seen Simmons' kind of average ratings and such in the league. He's been getting a lot of goals in other competitions. In the league, he's been disappointing. So, a change of personnel there, a few fresh legs in the final third. Maybe we can use that to, well, strike fear into the Glentoran defence. I'm going to also shout at the players and demand more from them. Getting a good focused response. Bannon, set piece. Surely not. Woodworking over, I think. I'm not sure if I did hit the crossbar actually, but it was a decent opportunity. It was in the script for him to score again. Now they have a chance. Kerr goes straight to Bannon. I feel like Bannon's been getting all the play here. Nice ball to Pesteridge. I've bigged you up, Pesteridge. Show us what you're made of. Either-footed. He can use both his feet. He's consistent. He's a player to be excited about for the future, even if he hasn't performed that great this year. Maybe I'm a little bit deluded. I feel like because Pesteridge and Wright came as a pair from Crewe, it's a love story I'm trying to ship together. I mean, Craig Bannon's creating his own love story with me. Who is Mandanda? Craig Bannon, third goal of the season for him. Phoenix on off the bench for the assist. Always good when your players off the bench have an impact. Morrison with this ball from deep. A lovely ball over the top. Phoenix, first touch, pulls it across. Bannon, I mean, who is Mandanda? Never heard of the guy. I only know Craig Bannon. There's that gif, isn't there? Like, friendship ended with, in this case, Mandanda. Bannon is my new best friend now. That's how I feel at this moment in time. 3 minutes left of this game. I mean, it's in extra time now. Let's make one more sub just to kill a bit of time. Sull can come off for Glendining. I know it's Glendinning, but dining it is. He's dining in my heart. And I can't change it now. They've got a chance with 10 seconds left. We're going to deal with it. We're going to win this. Bannon the man. Banman? It doesn't work. I'm trying to come up with a pun for Bannon the man. End it. Cut this bit out, Jack. But no, we're going to get the win, which is all you could really ask for. Pesteridge is like, I want to get a goal for you, Gaffer, to do you proud. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen, I don't think. Bradley clears it. Surely that is all. Surely that is all she wrote for this final. 3-2. We've not made it easy for ourselves. They had 0 clear-cut chances. Only 3 shots total on target, that is. We had 20 shots total, 8 on target. And we retain our Northern Irish Football League Cup title, which is great news. We're only 1 or 2 wins away from winning the league as well. What a performance, boys. What a performance. Coming back from behind early on. A bit of a setback, but we showed character, in the words of Brendan Rodgers, to come back from behind twice to win a game that you'd always expect us to win. But nevertheless, it had to be done. Bannon, I mean, man of the match. Man of the match. You can see as a playmaker, not necessarily considered the best player, but when you look at him here, it's hard to ignore his capabilities to be maybe our playmaker for years to come. Maybe he is the successor. Yet to make his league debut. But it wasn't a small fee paid for him, that £575,000. If you can put in performances like that, he's going to look like he was worth every single penny. Man of the match performance for him. 2 goals and an assist. A real difference maker. Brendan Rodgers was spotted taking a look at Kieran Kane. Please go away, Brendan. Maybe he heard my talk about character and that's why he's stalking me. He's like, he's nicking my phrase. I need to get rid of him. Okay, my imagination's running wild. It's been a longer episode today. I think that's what's done it. But yes, a fun one. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you watched it all the way through as well. As much as there was some rambling in the middle there, I feel like it was important just to talk a little bit about the squad and goings on. Just because I've not really done enough of that this year. It's been so European focused, and I feel like it's something that we need to be wary of and maybe shift away from going forward. In terms of the rest of the year, we have the league still to play. I think there's 7 games left of the season because we have the league split still. Assuming we go to the Irish Cup quarter-final, or rather the Irish Cup final, I'll join you guys for that to end the year. We have Crusaders in 5th and Warren Point in 12th in our next 2 games. We should have the league wrapped up quite comfortably before this split even happens. So really, I think next time out, we'll use it as an opportunity to reflect on the season, talk a little bit more about the plans for Season 4. I feel like we've set the standard and expectation pretty high this year with how well we've done in Europe, and it's going to be a challenge to match that. But it's a challenge that I'm certainly up for. But anyway, guys, that is going to be all from me today. I do hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, leave a like on it, particularly because this is one of those longer ones. It would be great. The likes on the series haven't been the craziest. Let's try and hit 300. If we can do that, it would be a Christmas miracle, 11 months early, but I would appreciate it. And, well, hopefully you're excited for the next one. It's going to be the end of season live com. Lots to build upon, lots to reflect upon. So much young attacking talent. I mean, look at the star ratings. I mean, it's impossible not to be excited by this. And also the fact they're all British and a lot of Northern Irish talent too. I feel like the future is bright here at LARNE. And of course, next episode, youth intake will have happened. So we've got that to talk about too. Anyway, I've hit the 40-minute mark. That is my signal to shut up. See you guys tomorrow. It is me, Jack. And I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.